And welcome to the first talk today. I'm honored to be with you guys. I represent two projects, Renewal and Tranquil Sky Tea, and they're both under the same umbrella. Let me introduce Renewal generally first, because our big umbrella is called Renewal. Okay, can everybody hear me okay? Okay. 英文可以吗？还是OK 可以。我普通话很差，所以说中文比较好。英文。Yeah, Renewal, we assist homeless people in Shanghai. And typically the first question I get is, are there homeless people in Shanghai? I haven't seen homeless people in Shanghai. And yes, there are. The reason you may not see them so often is because they are hidden. And when they are visible, the authorities might encourage them to move to a place that's less visible. So they're living at the train stations and People's Square and larger metro stations, and where they may blend in, and you may not even recognize that somebody's homeless. Or at the train station, you might think maybe this person's waiting on their train and they just happen to be sleeping here or whatever. Yeah, we definitely have quite a few homeless people here with us in Shanghai. But let me introduce, since the theme here is food, let me introduce our tea project to you. And this young man, his English name is Jiffy. He chose that name as himself, but we call him Xiao Ai. And he was living homeless in Shanghai. And he did our training program. So we have I'll tell you more about what we do with our homeless friends in Shanghai. But he did our training program. Well, let me give you a little bit about his background first. He's from Jiangxi province. And when he was younger, his dad passed away in I think maybe a conflict with a neighbor, and then his mother took off, and maybe she couldn't bear it, but she disappeared, and so Jiffy was raised by his relatives, and in a very poor rural village where his grandparents and aunts and uncles were struggling to get by themselves and had children they were raising. And so just from that trauma and of losing his parents at a young age, and his education was all right, but he describes himself as a naughty student, and he only did elementary school, a very bright young man. But these are the kind of stories that we hear from our friends on the street. Some kind of trauma in childhood, low education level from a poor family. They don't feel at home, even at home. They just feel like an outsider, like they don't belong. And so young men like this might come to Shanghai to look for work, look for a way to survive. Sometimes they'll pick bottles, plastic bottles out of the trash to survive. They'll do some day labor, just like, one day the guys will hear that over here there's a big shipment and they're giving 100 RMB to people who show up to help unload, and things like this. Also building stages, sometimes around Shujiahui in People's Square, you'll see, a temporary exhibit, Maybelline promotion or something. So they'll look for some guys to help set up the stages and things like that and give them 100 RMB for their work for the day. So they'll do jobs like this. So we met Jiffy, and this was a while back, probably may have been 10 years ago now that we first met Jiffy. He entered our program. He's a reserved young man. Entered our program, tried it out a few weeks and left. Came back and left again. Finally decided to stick out our training program. And eventually he got a job at Element Fresh, a nice Western restaurant in Shanghai. He was working at the juice bar, making their juice drinks and coffees and things like that. His boss, had very good feedback on him. He's a kind young man, very hard worker. He was living with us at our training center, doing a really good job. He'd have a conflict every once in a while, but he'd work it out. And so eventually the final step of our program is to move out of our residence and support yourself on your own. And so Jiffy found a place not far from the center, and I loved that, just so he could come back for meals and see us every once in a while. And it was a very, he was paying quite a lot of rent for a really small place, and so quite a bit of his monthly salary was going to his rent payment. And I went to visit him at his place, and I thought, oh gosh, this is just a really difficult existence for this young man. And eventually he quit his job at Element Fresh and struggled for a while, and was back on the street for a while. And so this is kind of the idea behind our tea project, this long story to tell you just about this young man who really benefited from it. Because with my long-term partner in this work, his name's Hansen Ye, a guy from Guangdong. He's in Yunnan right now. A few years ago, we started talking, and we were just making observations about our training program here in Shanghai, and we were thinking, Shanghai's just such a difficult city to survive in for someone who's experienced homelessness, and even getting into a minimum wage job and doing all right, but finding your own apartment is very, very difficult, and supporting yourself. And for Jiffy, it was just too much. And so I was talking to Hansen about, we didn't just observe this with Jiffy, but several other of our program service users. So we thought, what if we had a program in a rural area where we could give the option, like if you'd like to stay in the city, and some of our program participants love Shanghai and the international atmosphere and the opportunity for advancement, and they really flourish in the city. But by and large, they might just like a simple life in a rural area, more like where they grew up, and something without the huge expectations of the city and working a really strenuous job schedule, and then all of your pay going to your rent and food just to survive. And so it happened after COVID with my friend and partner Hansen. We toured around Yunnan to get COVID out of our heads, and he met a tea farmer. And to my surprise, about 6 months later, they were boyfriend and girlfriend, and about a year later, they were married. And so, I asked Hansen, I was like, what if, we've been talking about this rural program, what if we made it based around tea and in Yunnan? And he was like, yeah, that just sounds like a natural fit for us. And so this young man, Jiffy, was one of the first of our trainees to give it a try. And we had him in mind just because he's kind of the type that felt like, man, the big city was just just a little bit too much for him. And we invited him to Yunnan, and I mean, he just really thrived. And when he got there, he said, this feels like home to me. And, not only were we picking tea and processing the tea and learning about the tea from Hanson's wife, Gaishio, but he's helping with social media and taking product photos and other things. And so just learning some really great skills. And now he's living on his own. He has an apartment in Kunming, actually. And he finds it much, the rent is much cheaper and easier to survive. He has a job there in Kunming. It's just a much better environment for him than the city life in Shanghai. So that's really the idea behind our tea. So it's mainly a social concept. But let me pause there before I go on and ask any questions just as we get started with this. Yeah. Yeah, how do people find out about it? Word of mouth mainly, especially for the men in our program. They'll hear that there's a place in Minhang where you can come for a shower and laundry, and so they'll spread it by word of mouth. Women on the street are much more isolated. And actually, you can talk to Vicky afterwards. Wave, Vicky. She runs our women's program, and so we have fewer women, and they're much more isolated on the street. So it's harder to find. They're harder to find. So every once in a while, a volunteer will call us and say, "Hey, I think I've seen somebody, living in this area. Would you come check on them?" So we'll do that for men and women. Yeah. Good question. And that leads us to our next slide, which is our basic services for people living on the streets in Shanghai. So we have a little drop-in center, and you all are invited to visit sometime and volunteer. We are out in Minhang, but I'm in the chat group, the Common Ground chat group. I'm Jimmy. And Renewal is also in my name, so just add me later and if you'd like to learn more or come out for a visit sometime. But our drop-in center, we serve meals, a healthy meal. There's a place to shower. If they have their own set of clothing, they can leave their clothes and we'll wash it and return it to them the next time they come. Or if they need a new set of clothes, well, we've got donated clothing. So if y'all want to donate your clothing as well for men and women, we always need clothing donations. So yeah, and these are the basic services that we offer people on the street. They have to come all the way out to Minhang. So they typically come out on the metro. Sometimes they don't always pay. They just jump over the turnstile, but they make their way out there. And it's literally just a drop-in for a few hours. So we open the doors at 10, and once everybody's showered and changed and has a meal, then they're back out on the streets until the next time we open. So we do this service 3 times a week, and on Thursdays we close to men. So it's just women on Thursdays. So any questions about just the basic services we offer for friends on the street?
Sorry.
Oh yeah, please.
Is it also a shelter, like people stay there as well?
Yeah, you're asking just the right questions to move on to the next the next slide. Yeah. So as we get to know people in the drop-in center, they'll come week after week. We'll slowly get to know them. So every time we open the doors, we might have 20, 25 men, or about 10 women. And as we get to know people, we try to sensitively learn their family situation. Why are they on the street? Have they tried working? And if we feel like they're in need of help, and we can offer the help that they're looking for. We'll invite them to our residential training program. And that's a 24/7. They live there with us. They have 1 day off a week, but otherwise they're on a work schedule. We have a schedule from 8:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. So they're fixing breakfast. They're cleaning the place. They're helping run the drop-in center. They're washing the clothes. We have a lot of clothes to wash and dry and hang at the drop-in center. They organize our clothing donations that come in. So they walk the dog and bathe the dog and care for the dog. And so, yeah, and it's very small too. So at any given moment, we may just have 3 to 6 trainees living at our residence. And I live there myself when I'm in Shanghai. And it's really, our training is just kind of based on working and living together. So like I said, they're on the schedule. And we have kind of the shift leader, who's one of our graduates. And so he's kind of watching after the trainees and making sure everything's getting done. And we'll observe, hey, noticed you left your socks lying on the floor. You want to pick those up and put them in the wash? It just kind of things that they may not have picked up on at home, And, can they cook and clean? And are they, aware of hygiene issues in the kitchen and other things? We also want to see them have a conflict with their leader and with each other and work it out in a dignified fashion, and we help them with that. We don't have any real technical skills other than just learning some basics in the kitchen to cook and clean with us, because all of our employment partners have said, if you can provide us people with good attitudes, we can give them the skills. We just need good attitudes and people who want to work. So our training is about a 2-month program, and after 2 months, we just had a I was going to say young man, but he's my age. He's 51. Just finished our training program, and he needs a little more time. He's not quite ready. We're not going to introduce him to a job quite yet, but we're going to give him some clear feedback about the things he needs to work on. So then at that point, he'll have a choice of, would you like to stay here in Shanghai and we can introduce you to one of our job partners, or if you'd like to find a job yourself, you can do that, and we'll kind of provide some coaching, or hey, this looks good, that doesn't sound so good. Or if he'd like to go home and reconcile with his family, we'll help him with that. But then the third option is if he would like to go to Yunnan and help with our tea program. And so that's kind of the idea, is giving people more choices as they're just trying to sort out their lives and choose a direction that they find meaningful in life. Any more questions just as we get, this is actually my final slide. I want to allow plenty of time for y'all to taste our tea over here, and I'm going to talk a little more about the tea project. Anything else at the moment? Yeah.
I don't get it a point, because maybe I arrived later, so I missed some part of the presentation. So when you were referring about the program, training program, 2 months of training program, and then you give them like kind of free option, like
Yeah.
The training program, 2 months training program, is not about tea project. It's general. It's like training program about.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of, job, like, because I thought it was like tea training program beforehand, and then.
Yeah, good question, and I'm happy to clarify that. She's asking about the training and how it relates with the tea project. So the target for us is homeless people in Shanghai. Those are the people that we're helping. And so traditionally, until a few years ago, the only option they had was life here in the city and getting a job in the city or going home if that was their choice. So what we've done is we've added the tea program in Yunnan to give them an additional choice to get out of the city and have just a more relaxed pace and lower expectations.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And this final slide, I just wanted to kind of tell another story. A few years ago, this was right around Chinese New Year, and it was very cold in Shanghai, if you can imagine that. And I lived there at the training center, and there was a young woman who had attempted our training, and it didn't really fit for her, so she took off. But right before the Chinese New Year holiday, she came back and said, "Hey, can I spend the holiday here?" And we said, "Sure." That next morning, one of our trainees knocked on my door at 7:30 and said, "She's had a baby." And I said, "What? Who's had a baby?" Who's had a baby? So I ran downstairs, and there was a tiny premature baby on the freezing cold tile bathroom floor. And the only reason our trainee knew about it is because the dog was barking. And so the dogs woke them up, the dog woke him up, and they investigated what was going on. But anyway, this young woman, she didn't just want to spend the holiday for us, but she knew something was going on with her pregnancy. She didn't tell us she was pregnant, but she knew, and we didn't know. But I'm proud of her for knowing something wasn't quite right and coming to the center. So we rushed the baby to the hospital. I was kind of paralyzed. I was like, I don't know what to do. But our trainees actually, bundled up the baby in the warming dog blanket, and we rushed, to the hospital. And I mean, she just got extraordinary care in Shanghai in the hospitals, and so today the baby's in an orphanage in Guangxi, right? And the mom is also still working on her career, but she's decided to let another family adopt the baby. But this is the reason I tell this story is these are the kind of stories that I'd like to. I just thought, this young woman could have used just a more relaxed environment instead of coming into our training program in Shanghai and saying, like, "Hey, how are you going to support yourself in the next 2 months?" Maybe just having a longer, more extended time to heal, not have to think about how I'm going to support myself. Even if she had the baby and wanted to explore different options, or keeping the baby herself, having a resource or a place like that, and we just can't offer that in Shanghai. So just creating more paths for people to heal and take the time and space they need to recover from what they've experienced on the street and choose a path that they find meaningful. And so that to us is what the Tea Project is all about. So, everything I've shared so far is very much a social kind of element. And I know the theme here is food and sustainable food. And I think it's beautiful that we can have, a very clear kind of social dimension that you might not even think about when it comes to producing food. So Fred was asking earlier, we have our own, I was talking to you about Gai Xiu, which is Hanson's wife, my long-term partner's wife. She's a tea farmer, and so they have their own beautiful mountainside plot of tea trees. And so our own tea comes from those tea trees, but then we also interact with neighboring farms with their own expertise or famous, types of tea. And so we cooperate with everyone. So we both produce our own tea and cooperate with other small farms. And I think there's so much potential, not only with the social dimension that we're exploring, but supporting small farms in Yunnan if we can, get to the point where we're buying a significant amount of tea, and of course the environmental side of things as well. So I'm really excited about where the tea project could go. We're just getting started, and I invite you to try our tea. It's the first table right here. You can see Yang and Zhang right here. He's waving. There they are. But y'all make sure and get some tea and take some tea home to your friends or for yourself. Add me in the WeChat group and you can order tea from me. We don't have an online store yet. We're just getting started. But the tea from our own farm is called Gushu Shengpu, so ancient tree raw pu'er. It's very lovely this year. It's from our spring harvest, so please try it. If you like black tea, we have some very nice Gushu Shaihong. It's sun-dried black tea. And then we have some brand new white tea that's really lovely. So get one of each while you're here. And we've got all three for just to sample it. So please, during the intermissions, please sample our tea and give it a try and enjoy it. But most of all, please stay in contact and get involved with us if you can. And we're also looking for ways to market the tea to restaurants and either individuals or in China or overseas. So if you have ideas, please reach out. So that's my presentation, and we've got some more time. So yeah, any questions y'all have? Yeah, hi.
Hi. You mentioned you collect clothes.
Yeah.
From both men and women. When and where can we drop off clothes? And do you have specific questions? Like, for instance, do you prefer more clothes from men or women? Can you say some more about that?
Yeah, good question. A question about clothing donations. I'd suggest you add me from the WeChat group, Jimmy Renewal. Occasionally at the Rooster, it's a bar, and Tacolicious, we'll have they'll have a clothing drive, and I'll post the poster in my moments. Or I can always just give you the Kwai Di information, and you can just send it to us. But we take men's and women's clothes. We need both. Just practical stuff. Jeans especially are hard, and winter coats, thick and thin. Light and heavy. Shoes. But anything practical, men or women, is great. We don't have many children at all, so we really don't need children's clothes. But yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
For the tea, are participants given a wage, or is it like they're given housing when they first start out there? How does it work?
Yeah, good question. Question about how it works for the trainees that participate in the tea project. So we give them, it's room and board, so 包吃包住, and then a monthly stipend for their pay. That we have just an apartment in the Xiancheng, the county seat, I guess, is what we'd call it in Texas. And so when they go up to the tea mountain to work, we'll just take them up for the day. So one thing that's beautiful about tea is you can harvest it 3 seasons out of the year. You have spring, summer, and fall. But if neighbors and friends are busy with other crops like sugarcane or corn or rice on the mountains, then we'll pitch in. they'll also, I mentioned working on like product photography and social media. So there's really kind of a cool variety of things that they can do based on their inclinations and skills or things that they'd like to learn. And the distinction we have with our Yunnan project is there's no time limit. So they just come and work with us, and if they get to a point okay. Like Jiffy did, where he felt he kind of got what he needed from the program, and now he's living independently in Kunming. So there's no pressure. Just kind of work with us for a while. We do have a gentle expectation that everybody's moving forward, including myself and staff. That we're growing as humans, and not just there to stagnate. So that's sometimes a gentle conversation about, hey, where are we going in life? Yeah, hi, Clara.
You mentioned the job providers here in Shanghai. What kind of jobs are they?
Yeah. Our main provider pre-COVID, our main partner was Element Fresh, and they've closed since COVID, and also M on the Bun. But now we're working on a relationship. I mentioned Tacolicious, also Home Sliced Pizza is a partner. And actually at Anken we've had, this was years ago, but we've had several people work for Anken as well. And we've also got in Songjiang, there's a factory that makes plumbing parts for pools, and it's very very well run and a great place to work. So yeah, those are our employment partners now. And we also encourage people just to look for themselves for a job, which is a skill in itself, of course. So we've got a young man that's working at Pizza Marzano, and he's done really well, and it's kind of in a management position. Another young man that's worked at SF Express, as a Kwaidi. Yeah.
I was wondering why Yunnan tea project. I mean, why do you choose this as a, you can say, third proposal? Like, I was wondering if from their side, from Yunnan farmer, they also they were, happy to collaborate with you, because they really need a new workforce. What is the main reason of this?
Yeah, sure. She asked why Yunnan. There's several reasons. We were originally looking closer to because we're. But one thing I really love about Yunnan is there's so many ethnicities. Everybody just blends in and feels at home. There's not kind of sometimes I feel like a homogeneous kind of culture in some of the other provinces, but Yunnan's just very diverse, with people from all over, and Han Chinese and all kinds of ethnicities. So people just really feel like they fit in. And of course, the weather in Yunnan is really wonderful. And so especially for a program where we're focusing on healing and developing as humans, it's kind of nice not to, be burning up in the summer and freezing in the winter. But also tea itself, again, you can harvest 3 seasons out of the year. So there's kind of a consistency and consistency with it. But one of the other angles is my long-term partner's wife is a tea farmer, and that's their home, and so it's a very natural place for us, and she's our tea expert. She shows us all about processing. She knows all the neighbors that have wonderful tea, and she's very particular about her tea, so we'll go try tea and she'll be like, no, this year it's no good, we're not buying it. So she's really wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, great question. Mainly individual donations from Shanghai. We're only based here in Shanghai. I'm one of the founders from 2008. Vicky's been working with us since 2009 probably. And so mainly people here in Shanghai, and we need your support, yeah, for sure. There's a few businesses that support us, but we're not a registered charity in Shanghai. We're working on it again and exploring it, but it's very difficult. And this is actually another reason that we're pursuing the tea project, is we need another form of income, because we're not going to survive, too much longer unless we get creative. So that's another angle of it. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
For you, this is a more complicated question. I'm happy to keep talking afterwards.
Oh, no problem.
But,
Yeah.
I was just curious, since it sounds like you're from the U.S., like what differences have you seen working with like helping unhoused people get back on their feet again in China versus the U.S.? Because especially we've done that work in the U.S., particularly because I feel like the contexts are quite different of why people find themselves in a situation of being unhoused in China versus the U.S. Or maybe it is more similar that you've seen than you might expect. Yeah, just wondering about your perspective about being someone who's not from there.
Yeah, sure. Great question. She's asking about kind of comparing the reasons for homelessness in China with the U.S. or outside.
And the work around addressing that.
Oh, yeah, sure. I've only worked with unhoused people here in China. I was a volunteer in my home in Texas. That's kind of how I got interested in the first place, was, hey, how can I help or volunteer? And there was just not much out there. But I will say, having learned what I have doing this for 17 years, I feel like the common thread is trauma. Like when I talk to people here in China, or when I'm traveling, whether it's Europe or Australia or the U.S., there's a very painful story that they're telling that's affected them their whole life. Sometimes it's situational, and China and in the U.S. and other places, sometimes you're just out of luck and out of cash and might be temporarily homeless for a while. But I'm talking about those people that are on the streets and can't seem to get off. And it's really the common thread is trauma. So there's other things that, especially substance abuse in the United States and other places is a bigger factor, just because it's more readily available, and it makes the healing much more complicated, doesn't it? No, not much. We have other things here that, like very hard alcohol is almost free, and gambling is a very addictive and can be very difficult to get out of. But yeah, those harder, drugs and substances that just ruin lives, we don't see that very often. Yeah.
Have you seen the housing crisis in big cities in China play into homelessness as well?
I didn't hear that.
The housing crisis. I feel like having spent a good amount of time in the Bay Area, a big reason why people are unhoused there is because of the housing crisis. Like they were living in a place and then they were priced out. They couldn't afford rent anymore, even if they had a job. Like, is that something that was? Yeah,
sure. Definitely, and that's kind of an angle that one of the reasons for the Yunnan program to begin with is like, let's not try to solve that in Shanghai. They're working on it, I'm sure, but not at the pace that minimum wage workers that were unhoused that's going to have any impact. So hey, if you'd like to get out of the city and to a cheaper place with a dignified job, that's how we're solving it, ourselves. Yeah. Yeah.
Like building the point around trauma, are you able to help people access any kind of professional medical or mental health services? How do you help them with that?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that. She's asking about medical and mental health. And that really is one of our core things that we offer. At the drop-in level, the drop-in services, we only offer it for women. We have too many men to really do a good job with kind of providing medical services. But we do that for the women. But then when they enter our training program, part of it is their medical needs. And we make sure everybody's checked out. And we have a great relationship with one of the international hospitals that gives us a really deep discount. And so, that's really a core part, because if you're not healthy, and mental health as well, and we have a local Chinese college that offers us services, as well as the international hospital. That's key, and I'm glad you asked. That's about my time, and I want to leave time for y'all to buy tea and try our tea today. Again, the table's just right here. So anytime today, try it out. But let's have a conversation, and please add me again in the WeChat group, because I'd love to receive you sometime in our Minhang and show you around, or if you'd like to volunteer. We always need help with clothing donations and volunteering and financial donations, or helping us with the tea project. So would love your input and help with us. So thanks, everybody.